Hi, I'm Britt,
And my name is Alissa.
and this is Skeletales.
And this is the podcast where we strive to answer the age old question of, is my dead grandma watching me?
We do. We also share true tales of the strange, unusual, and paranormal.
Heck yeah, we do. What are we talking about this week, Britt?
Well, this is a special week because you have traveled far, far across the country to come to my turf of Portland, a whole 45-minute flight.
It's true.
And so you're here, you're in Portland.
I know. When I flew here, we literally got up to altitude. I took out my laptop or my iPad for 5 minutes and they're like, okay, and get prepared for the descent into Portland. It was like the shortest flight ever. Man, Portland is a trip. This is for sure the longest time I've spent in Portland. And when they say keep Portland weird, I now have a greater appreciation for that saying. Lots of animals on people, naked people. Naked. You haven't even heard about the naked dude
I
that
haven't.
was bouncing around all over the area I was working in yesterday. Oh my God, what else? Oh yeah, I saw someone got hit by a car. It's just been
Jesus.
wild. I know. So we are going to tell stories about the land of Portland, Portlandia.
That's right. Creepy, weird, haunted Portland.
All right, you ready for me to get into it?
I am so freaking ready.
Okay, so this one comes from Channy, and they say, this was a few years ago, but it still makes me feel super weird to even think about it. So, my husband and I went to explore this creepy, super old house in the middle of the woods of Oregon with three of our friends. We had our fun exploring it and then started to head back, having about a 2-mile hike ahead of us. At some point on the way back, I saw this person sitting down and sobbing. He or she had on really baggy clothes and looked very dirty. They had their head in their lap, so I couldn't see a face. I had a very strange feeling and for whatever reason, just kept walking without going over to help. I saw all of my friends looking at this person, but we were all totally silent and we all started walking a little bit quicker. Anyway, we kept walking in total silence and everything just felt weird for a few minutes. Finally, one of our friends says something along the lines of, that guy was really strange. That's where things got really weird. My other friend says, guy, I just saw a dog. Well, that eventually led to us all discussing what we saw. I saw the crying person. One of us saw a dog by itself. One of us saw a man mocking us as we walked by. And one of us just saw a sleeping person. I still don't know what to think of it. So later, I found out the name of the old house we went to. It's called the Witch's Castle, and it has a disturbing backstory. So I'm going to tell you all about the Witch's Castle. Have you heard of this, Britt?
And not only have I heard of it, I have been there. So I am thrilled to hear the story and the backstory and all of that because I know very little about it, but it is a really cool and a little creepy place.
Oh, okay. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to give you the information from Atlas Obscura. And they say in the mid 1800s, well before the structure was built, a man named Danford Balch bought a large portion of land around the area while Portland was still in the process of being developed. It was a big enough area that he had to hire help to clear the land. So he hired a man named Mortimer Stump, who lived in the cabin on the property with Balch's family of 10. Over time, Stump and Balch's daughter Anna fell in love, and eventually Stump asked Balch for his Anna's hand in marriage. Balch refused, resulting in Stump and Anna threatening to elope. Balch became infuriated and told Stump that he would murder him if they did. The young couple didn't heed the warning and decided to elope in November of 1858. When Balch learned of the elopement, he became deeply depressed, which led to days of no sleep and of heavy drinking. When the young couple returned to Portland, Balch quickly remedied the situation as he saw fit. He shot Stump in the face with a double-barreled shotgun while all were aboard the Stark Street ferry. Balch was quickly arrested, but was able to escape from the wooden jail he was held in. And then they skip a part because then they just go to this led to his execution in mid-October of 1859, which became the first legal execution in Oregon.
Whoa.
Yeah. After Balch's death, the property was passed around through different hands down the next century, eventually bequeathed to the city of Portland. In the 1930s, the stone structure that is seen today was built near the site of the Balch residence. It was maintained by Portland Parks and Recreation and was used as a park ranger station and restrooms for hikers. In 1962, the structure was heavily damaged in a storm and was abandoned. Moss soon covered the stone walls, the roof caved in, and some people graffitied its walls. It was mostly forgotten until the 1980s when local high school students found it was a fun place to hold parties. The students named it the Witch's Castle, despite no connection to witches, and made a tradition of holding gatherings on Friday nights, something that still happens today. So that's the story of the Witch's Castle and the creepy background. I was having trouble. Had you heard of it being haunted or any other creepy happenings there?
I have not heard of it being haunted. I have heard lots and lots of people say, yes, it's the witch's castle, but it's not haunted. But I can absolutely see this. What do you even call something like a changeling or what? Not a changeling. That's a fairy term. I believe that to be true because of the mysticism in the forest. Because to get to the witch's castle, you do have to hike at least a mile to get to it. It is not like drive up to the thing. You have to hike through the forest to get to this house. And so I can see there being some mysticism with the forest. And the house is pretty creepy, but also just really cool too, because it is covered in moss. Tons of graffiti on it too, but it has a lot of charm.
Yeah, I found some old pictures of it too before it was demolished and broke down, and it was kind of creepy looking then too. It was bathrooms and a warming hut or something like that. But yeah, it definitely has some bad juju for sure.
The Mortimer Stump.
Mortimer Stump. Maybe it was poor Mortimer Stump.
Yeah, sitting on a stump
and crying.
I would too. I also am a little tickled by the fact that they held prisoners in a wooden jail. That just
I know.
Feels like disaster waiting to happen.
I know. I kind of want to know more about that story. Like the way that was written was almost like he was executed because he escaped the jail and not because he shot his daughter's husband in the face.
Oh, mercy.
But yeah, it kind of makes me want to go check it out too. Hey, do you have a story, my friend?
I do have a story, and it takes place here in Portland. This story comes from Anonymous. The following is not my experience, but was told to me by a stripper who dances in Portland. A girl who we'll call Angie decided to go to the White Eagle Tavern in the Albina section of Portland. Portland is divided by the Willamette River. West side is downtown Portland. East side is East Portland. Back around 1900, the east side was mainly forest and farms, with marshes, swamps, and the occasional built-up area. One of these built-up towns was Albina, which is directly across the river from downtown Portland. In 1900, it was a small town of about maybe 700 people. Its social center was the White Eagle Tavern. On the first floor was a tavern. On the second and third floors were rooms with no toilets, which is even the same today. In the basement was a brothel. Anyway, the story goes, they had a prostitute who was in love with the piano player of the White Eagle, but a local cowboy was in love with the prostitute. A love triangle. Anyway, according to the legend, the cowboy was planning to marry the prostitute as soon as he came into better financial situation. The cowboy told the piano player, "Stay away from my woman or else." He came into the tavern, went to see the prostitute, only to see the piano player in bed with her. Well, he took out his gun and he shot them both dead. And when he saw what he'd done, he put the gun into his own mouth and pulled the trigger. Since then, some people have heard piano music, even though there's no piano there, and a woman crying. Some people have seen a shadow of a cowboy walking around upstairs. The following is what the stripper told me. She said she didn't know that the White Eagle Tavern was haunted. Nobody had told her. They went there one evening because a small alternative band was playing there. They decided to rent a room for the night. The rooms were cheap, and the toilet is at the end of the hallway. The rooms had no TV, no radio, a sink, but no toilet. But they were planning to drink, and the rooms were cheap. So they bought a room for the night, and I think it was like $45. Anyway, they turned off the light and went to sleep. She said she heard something, and she looked toward the door. She saw a shadow come through the door. The shadow looked just like a cowboy, but it was pure blackness, no features, no colors. She could hear the spurs on his boots as he started to walk past their bed. When he got to their bed, he stopped, turned towards them, bent over, and looked at them. She could see no eyes, no features, just pure blackness. Then he straightened up, walked over to the sink, stared into the mirror, though she could see no reflection. He adjusted his cowboy hat and then turned around and started to walk out. Once he got in front of their bed, he stopped, turned toward them, leaned over again as if staring at them. She said that she was so scared that she couldn't move. He straightened back up, walked over to the door, and then walked through the door. And that was that. When he was gone, she violently shook her boyfriend, who turned over and said, I know, I saw him too. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the White Eagle Saloon and Hotel.
All right.
It is now owned by a local franchise called McMenamins, which is all over Portland and even on the outskirts of Portland. And I think there might even be some in Washington too.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Most of the McMenamins, they take old historic locations, renovate them, and make them functioning again, which makes this story even funner that they've kept with the sort of history of it all. The saloon was established in 1905 by Bronislaw and William to serve Polish workers who lived in the area. At a gradual but steady pace, the surrounding neighborhood became industrialized. So the clientele of the White Eagle Saloon changed, drawing in laborers who worked at the docks, rail yards, and factories. As the port area developed, more sailors off the ships also began to call the White Eagle their place to enjoy alcoholic beverage, good grub, and other pleasures which began to be offered as well, courtesy of another owner of the place. By this time, the White Eagle Saloon was no place for respectable society. The tradition says that some male customers were sometimes shanghaied onto ships who needed men. We touched on this when we did our previous Portland stories. Supposedly, there was an underground tunnel from the basement of the building which led outside. This route was taken by the kidnapping thugs who transported the men who were incapacitated in some way to the ship where they would wake up on the boat the next morning. The basement and upstairs rooms were commonly used as brothels, and one source even said an opium den. In the basement, people have heard music. The freezer door will open and shut by themselves. Groping has happened, coins falling from the ceiling. Upstairs and on the second floor, people have heard women crying, windows and doors opening and closing on their own. On the main floor where the tavern is, something pushed a waitress down the stairs towards the basement. Luckily, she only sustained minor injuries. An entity has been seen walking through the hallway from the bar to the men's bathroom and flushes the toilet. Toilet paper in the ladies' room has been known to fly around on its own accord. Chairs move by themselves. Utensils, cooking tools have been flown around the kitchen. This place is haunted as shit. It's a much more respectable place now where you can go and grab a drink and listen to live music. But beware, the past seems to want to stay and play too. When we had the medium Sarah on, she talked about how these places where there's a lot of people and a lot of energy is where the spirits, the ghosts, love to hang out. So it surprises me none that this place is just littered with ghosts.
And murder, right? There's that history of the love triangle. And the cowboy died there too, right? They all died there.
They did.
I still don't want to stay there. I was going to say, oh, that'd be fun to stay there. I don't want to stay there.
I would not want to stay there, not because of the ghost situation, but because of the no bathroom in the room. I don't want to be walking down a haunted hallway to the bathroom at the end of the hall at 3 a.m. I don't want to do it.
No, I just don't want to share a bathroom.
Good point. That's a different kind of haunting.
Ooh, good story.
Alyssa, do you have another story?
I do. So my next story also is a story that comes from a stripper. So we have a real pattern here in Portland. Okay, so this one comes from Daniel. They say that I've attended strip clubs for about 20 years or so, first in Seattle, Washington, and then in Portland, Oregon. For about 7 or 8 years, I've asked every stripper I've met, have you ever seen or heard a ghost? About 1 in 7 have responded that yes, they have seen or heard a ghost. I asked them to tell me their stories. Mostly they told me of strange knocks or bodiless voices or seeing shadow men. But one of these stories stood out. It was told to me by a stripper named Cameron. She was in her early 20s, long brown hair, large blue eyes, and lots of tattoos. I asked her, have you ever seen or heard a ghost? Her eyes almost bulged out of her head. She then told me her story. Several years earlier, she worked at a different strip club in Portland. Portland, Oregon is known as the strip club capital of the U.S., with about 56 strip clubs.
There you go. There you go.
The saying is in Portland, there's a strip club on every block. That is almost true. Anyway, Cameron told me that she lived in an apartment building at the end of a street called a court. That is where the street ends in a large circle. The street went past a vacant lot, which had a lot of overgrown trees and brushes, tall grass. And then the street turned to the left sharply and ended in a large circle or court. And on that court was the apartment complex. The only way to get to the apartment complex was to drive down the street past the large vacant lot on the right side. The large vacant lot had once had a large farmhouse and a barn, but these things were gone for many decades. Yet, Cameron could still see the foundations of the large farmhouse near the corner. The rest of the lot was, as I said, trees, bushes, and very tall grass. One day after work, Cameron was driving home and passed the vacant lot where the old farmhouse and a barn once stood. This was at about 3 a.m. in the morning. In any case, she glanced in the rearview mirror, and to her astonishment, she saw a man in farmer overalls running behind her car, about 3 car lengths. The man appeared about 30 years old with long brown unkempt hair, a beard with a lumberjack shirt and blue overalls like farmers used to wear. His face appeared very white, but very, very angry. This startled her, and she gave her little car a little more gas and sped off around the corner to the left to her apartment complex. The incident scared her. About a week later, Cameron was coming home from work and was passing the vacant lot again on her way home, and she looked into the rearview mirror, and sure enough, the man in the overalls was running after her car, this time 2 car lengths behind her. She could tell he was very angry, and she gave her car gas and sped around the curve so fast she almost lost control. The next day, she told a neighbor in the apartment complex about the young man chasing her car. The old woman, who had lived in the complex since it was built, told her that on the vacant lot there used to be a farmhouse and a barn, and an old man lived there with his mentally ill son. She said that this was in the 1920s, she thought, but she wasn't really sure. Anyway, the old woman told her that the mentally ill son had kidnapped some women and a young girl and killed them in the barn and buried their bodies under that same barn. But eventually he was found out and sent to an insane asylum where he later died. The old man died and nobody wanted to buy his farm and live in the house. So the house and barn were eventually torn down, leaving the vacant lot. After the son died in the asylum, the vacant lot was taken over by the city of Portland, which apparently had either decided not to sell it or simply could not find a buyer. Cameron was greatly disturbed by what the old woman had told her. The old woman told her someone else in the neighborhood, another old woman, had told her that story many years before when she used to walk her dog in the vacant lot. The old woman said she would get very uncomfortable feelings when she walked her dog near the foundations of the old farmhouse, and her dog would bark up into the air and growl at nothing. Cameron then decided she would have to move. She took a few days off to do that. She found another place and would move into her new place in a few days. But the manager of the strip club called her and said, "We need you to come in tonight. Several of the girls didn't show up."
Perfect.
Cameron pleaded that she didn't want to come in, but the manager was insistent. So she got her stripper outfits, her makeup bag, and drove to the strip club. As usual, Cameron got off work about 2 a.m., changed out of her stripper clothing, what little there was of it, and drove home. She was happy this was the last night she'd have to drive past that vacant lot. She was determined to not look into the rearview mirror tonight. As Cameron neared the intersection where the vacant lot began, her heart started to race. She said to herself, "I am not going to look into the rearview mirror, and that is that." She gave it more gas and started to fly by the old foundations of the farmhouse and barn where the serial killer had tortured and buried his victims. She kept her eyes straight ahead, but perhaps out of habit, she quickly glanced into the rearview mirror and she saw nothing. She looked, and again, nothing. She was so relieved. She turned her head around to look back, and the man in the overalls with the unkempt long brown hair and beard was sitting in her back seat, staring at her with a total look of anger and evil. Cameron screamed as loud as she could and floored the vehicle, throwing her car into the hard left and then a hard right. And then she felt the car leap over the sidewalk into the vacant lot and down into some large bushes where it came to a stop. She flung open her door and started to run as fast as she could, leaving her car in the bushes, lights on, still running. This time, she didn't look back. She ran all the way to her apartment complex, only to notice that she had left her keys and her purse in the car. She banged on the old woman's door, crying, and the old woman let her in. It took about an hour to calm her down, but then the old woman and Cameron finally walked back to her car and retrieved her purse. The young man in the overalls was nowhere to be seen. They turned off her car, locked it, and went back to the apartment complex. As Cameron told me this story, she started to shake and goosebumps appeared on her skin, the largest goosebumps I'd ever seen. She was almost crying and visibly shaken up by the time she finished her story. That's why I know that she was not lying to me. I regret I did not ask her what street this court was on, but I believe that she was telling me the truth. I've heard of other stories where serial killers remain on the earth plane as ghosts, not wanting to go into the light and face judgment. Perhaps this is one such case.
Oh my God, that got my heart racing.
It was a good one, I thought.
Oh my God, good story.
Yeah, that's a nope with a capital N to me. I'm glad we don't know where it is because I don't want to know where the fuck that is.
Nope, staying the hell away from a vacant lot.
Hey, Britt, do you have another story for me?
I do. I'm going to tell you a story by Herman. In southeast Portland, there's a very old pioneer cemetery known as Lone Fir. It's very spooky, tons of graves and crypts from the late 1800s. It was around 11:30 at night, and me and my friend were waiting to meet with another friend around the corner. He was running late, so to kill time, we decided to hop the fence and explore the cemetery. We were walking along the road inside and noticed a figure standing still about 50 yards ahead of us. Thinking it was someone trying to scare us, I yelled, "What up?" No reply. So we kept walking towards it, attempting to play along with this person's joke. When we finally got within 20 feet, the person went completely catatonic and violently jerked their head up towards the sky. At this point, me and my friend were a little taken back. However, I still couldn't see the person's face or clothes because it was so dark. Keep in mind, the cemetery is covered with old growth trees. I walked closer until I could make out the face of an old man with a longer beard. He was wearing a white shirt and black pants. He was still staring up at the sky until I said, "Hello?" He let out a blood-curdling yell and jerked his head violently in the direction of my friend and I. His eyes were completely blank, and he just stared, then yelled again, "Ah!" After that, me and my friend booked it out of the cemetery. We had no idea what we saw. We were freaking out. However, I've always had interest in the paranormal, so we immediately went back to see if it was some homeless guy on PCP. We went back, scanned through the cemetery, and not a single person was there. My friend was so terrified that he refuses to talk about what happened to this day. I came across on the Portland Reddit page a flyer that's taped to a post at the Lone Pine Cemetery. And I'm going to read that to you real quick before I get into the history, just because I found it thoroughly entertaining, not paranormal in the slightest. So the sign taped to this post says, "Warning to visitors. A goth horror wannabe asshole is stalking/threatening Lone Fir visitors. They have crow feathers in the hair, white makeup, black clothing, sometimes a cape or veil. They carry a knife, and they've also been seen on Belmont. Report sightings to 911 to get info. We will get this piece of shit thrown out. Lone Fir belongs to the community. We protect us."
I love that. I hate that, but what an asshole. There's someone just creeping around trying to scare people dressed like that. It's the crows, man. It's the crows, the Portland crows. That's another weird ass thing. There's so many fucking crows flying around the skies here.
I know. What are they doing? Why?
Oh my
Portland's
gosh.
Crazy, man. It's crazy.
It is crazy. Oh, I kind of want to see that person though. I might have seen him. I don't know, man. I've seen a lot of strange shit since I've been here.
You know, Austin says, "Keep Austin weird." But no, for real though, like, Portland trumps Austin's weirdness. Sorry, Austin. I love you, and I love what is left of the weirdness, but Portland is keeping it. It's keeping it.
Seattle also has that same saying of like, keep Seattle weird. Portland, for sure, much weirder.
Winning, topping the charts. Okay, are you ready to learn about the Lone Fir Cemetery?
I am so ready. Is there one tree in it?
As a matter of fact, it is. Any guess what kind it might be?
A fir tree?
No, I mean, yes.
Oh.
It first began as a cemetery with just one grave on private land in 1854. When a steamship exploded later that year, killing 24 of its 50 passengers, the then owner of the land set aside 10 acres for a cemetery. By 1866, the cemetery had grown to 30 acres and was named Lone Fir for its one fir tree standing on the land. No money was ever set aside for the care of the cemetery, and by 1928, it was covered with blackberries, and there were over 10,000 graves without headstones. As a final resting place for the city's pioneers, founders, early Chinese immigrants, asylum patients, firefighters, and more, the cemetery holds plenty of secrets and lore. With over 25,000 graves, including 16 Portland mayors, this is one cemetery that has plenty of horrifying stories that will make your skin crawl just thinking about them. There is one grave of a former high-end prostitute named Emma Merlotin, a 28-year-old prostitute from Brittany, France. In 1885, she was known as 1885, what? Old-timey, a hooker with a gold... No. A hooker with a heart of gold.
Oh, I thought you were going to say like a gold pussy, a gold vagina. I don't know what.
That would have been so much better of a quote. No, just a heart. Damn.
Oh, my brain is in the gutter. Man, Portland's getting to me.
She fed neighbors in need and had saved up to buy Christmas gifts for the poor. Unfortunately, she was brutally attacked with a hatchet in her home. Did I say when? 1885. An onlooker at the crime scene, a man named William, was watching the police as they examined her body. His face was covered in fresh scratches, but he denied that he was the killer, so they investigated him no further. At the time, it was believed that the last image a person saw before she or he died was captured on the retina of the eye. To aid in solving the crime, one of Emma's eyes was removed to find out who her killer was. No one was ever charged with the crime because that's ludicrous, and they did not see an image in her eyeball.
I was like, is that a thing?
Like our eyeballs are cameras and we just... Now, some visitors of the cemetery are said to hear whispers in their ear, feel cold wind brush against them. Some people have even witnessed Emma herself walking through the trees of the cemetery wearing Victorian clothing, and some have even seen her carrying around a hatchet. Some people hear women screaming, others hear women crying. A white mist has been seen rising from the ground, only to vanish. Chinese immigrant apparitions have been seen wandering around the cemetery, looking lost. And a little girl, which is my least favorite, has been seen walking through the gravestones carrying a doll in her arms and then vanishing. That is the Lone Fir Cemetery.
Which ghost would you prefer to encounter in the cemetery?
Prefer?
Yeah.
Give me the white mist. Give me the white mist coming up from the ground, and I'll be like, cool. Hey, miss, we're good. Dissipate. Let's go on.
Okay, I agree. Okay, if you had to choose between little girl with a doll and catatonic.
Oh, catatonic man staring up at the sky, screaming at me?
Yeah, which one?
Little girl.
Okay.
Little girl.
I think I would too. I have one more story. Can I tell you this story?
Oh, thank God. Yes, of course.
This one comes from Brules Rules. I think it's probably Brules Rules. I don't know. They say, all right, y'all, hold on to your butts. I've had a number of paranormal encounters in my life. I do believe in ghosts because, quite frankly, if they don't exist, it means I've got some seriously deep and twisted delusional disorder or something. I'll take the ghosts. None of my experiences come close to measuring up to a few months I worked at a haunted aquarium fish store in Portland, Oregon. This was likely the oddest job I've ever had in my life, even without the ghosts. I actually worked in the basement of the store where fish were received via worldwide mail orders. And my job was to nurse the fish back to health and make them happy and pretty before they got sold in the store upstairs or to private buyers. I tended to about 100 tanks of various kinds of fish on my row. The first week I worked, I kept thinking my supervisor was standing at the end of my row watching me. I'd get that feeling I was being watched. I'd turn, no one would be there. The second week, I'd get the same feeling, but when I turned, this hulking, opaque shadow figure would be there for just a moment. By the end of the first month, I was seeing Shadow Man almost daily, being bumped by him, seeing him walk around the shop with a limp, hearing his sighs in my ear, even nearly falling off a ladder once because he came up behind me and blew a powerful gust of air on the back of my neck. It was such a strong force. It blew my hair all over the place and it scared the hell out of me. I did not enjoy the energy, demeanor, or presence of this thing. It basically acted like an abusive boss breathing down my neck and stalking me all the time. I didn't say anything to anyone at first because I really needed that job and didn't want to be let go. They were hard to come by as a young person in Portland in 2012. Eventually, I started getting close with a coworker and told her what I was experiencing. She had worked there for years, and her response was, "You see him too? Have you encountered the hippie ghost yet? That one's my favorite. He wears a tie-dye. I bet it'll come around." Apparently, this presence smelled like patchouli and weed. I never encountered it. As as I learned more, I came to understand that my boss, the owner of the whole business, was vehemently in denial that the place was haunted. If anyone brought it up to him, he just shut that down altogether. Apparently, he'd lost a lot of employees because of the ghosts. One time, he and I were walking down a row of tanks toward a tall stack of newly emptied, sizable cardboard boxes. The top box suddenly launched itself about 50 feet, smacking the wall all the way on the other side of the room. He immediately looked at me and said, "Did you see that?" He got super flustered and quickly walked out of the room. Another time, I heard a voice right in my ear, clear as a bell and out of the blue when I was standing in the break area. It was a little girl who said, "Excuse me," very sweetly. It was not the same voice as any of my coworkers. I didn't share about that one with anyone because I only ever associated hearing voices with being schizophrenic. I wasn't ready to face that possibility just yet. The coup de grace came right at the end of my time there. I was moving out of Portland, and my coworker and dear friend by then, and I decided we wanted to do an EVP recording. I asked my boss if we could come in on the weekend to do the recording, and he just shrugged his shoulders and rolled his eyes, told us to knock ourselves out. We set up on a Sunday. The only other human there was the cleaning lady. We let the tape recorder roll for about an hour as we just walked around the place and chatted. Then we packed up. I decided to play the recording back on my drive home and nearly crashed my car. There are voices all over that hour of recording. I'd hoped to hear the Shadow Man's voice, and he's on there, I think, saying, "I looked everywhere," in a really angry tone. I looked everywhere. But the main voice on that recording is a little girl. She says several things. The most chilling and clear of all is, "Do you want me to leave, Daddy?"
Oh, no.
It's the exact voice I heard in my ear that one day during break. The next day I saw my boss and he just casually asked, "So, how's the recording going? Get anything?" I said, "Yes, it's the craziest thing. I expected to get a man's voice, but the main voice we got is a little girl's." The color immediately drained from his face and he rushed out of the office. The office assistant had overheard the conversation and said, "Dude, that's messed up. You should fuck with him like that." I had no idea what I did, so I asked for clarification. Turns out my boss's wife absolutely refused to go into the basement anymore because she claimed that a little girl's ghost was trying to hold her hand and ask her questions. My boss's wife practiced Santeria. The assistant took me around to all the fish tanks in the place that she had placed Santeria wards to keep away evil. I'd always just thought they were little funky decorations. I still have the recording. I'm not sure what to do with it besides share it with friends every so often. I'm so glad for the experience. It keeps me humble and curious. I'm also damn glad to not work there anymore.
Share the recording with us.
She actually does share it.
Is it a link? Can you send it to me?
Yeah, I'm going to send you the link right now.
That wishes to communicate that is a positive spirit that comes with light.
Okay, what
the part that was very pronounced and very clear is at 43:24.
I heard it. Okay, I'm going to play it again. It does sound like a little girl is like in the far side of the room and she's saying, "Do you want me to leave, Daddy?" That's how she sounds. You heard it?
Ew, I did not like that. It almost sounds, you know what it almost sounds like is like a doll voice, like a recorded play doll, like when it has the pre-recorded voices. Oh, will you change my diaper? I'm hungry, mommy.
Do you want me to leave, Daddy? So good. Ooh, good story. And with audio to back it up. Freaking loved that. These were so fun tonight.
You live in a very weird, spooky place, my friend.
Yes, I do. You're welcome.
Hey, if anyone out there listening knows the name of a haunted fish store in Portland. Nope, that's not the name of the place. Portland. I'm tired.
It's been a long week.
In Portland. Hey, you should send it in to the hotbox at skeletalespodcast@gmail.com. Or if you have another spooky tale about Portland.
That's next level, Porky. You can call in any stories about Porky or Portland to 302-689-DEAD, 302-689-3323. We are on all of the socials. You can DM us over there. Check out our pages. We're posting some funny stuff. You should post some funny stuff too. Why not?
Yeah. You can also go hit us up on Etsy. We got a cool old Etsy shop.
Yes, you can get some great Skeletales merch and even just some fun items that are not necessarily even Skeletales related at skeletalespodcast.etsy.com.
Some haunted dolls, and then you can go in a cemetery and pretend to be a dead little, like a ghost, and walking around a cemetery, and then people can put up posters about you at the local cemetery.
Oh my God, we've sustained your future. Yes.
Full circle.
Get a haunted doll, paint your face white, walk around the cemetery.
Then take a picture of the poster and send it to us, or post it on the social medias on the Skeletales community. All right.
We've planned your life for you. Go do that now. Alissa, is there anything else tonight?
Shit, I don't know, Britt. Oh, wait a minute. No, there is. Haunt you later.
Haunt y'all later.
Good night.
Good night.